You know, I do try my hardest to make sure that whenever I do my weekly updates, my background or surroundings look a lot like what I've been experiencing. So welcome to the end of week 11. In the past week, I've been to Washington, Idaho, Montana, and I'm currently in North Dakota. I'm currently at a rest area. My car is right over there. But in the past week, I have talked to 70 strangers from those 4 different states, bringing our grand total to 762 strangers who have given me life advice and who have been photographed on my 50-year-old film camera. Now I know that I haven't been sharing a lot of the life advice that I've been getting from these strangers, and that's because that's going to come in time. Once I'm able to develop the photos, digitize them, and then transcribe what those people told me, because I have an audio recording of most of the strangers I talked to. Once I can pair that all together, that's when you're going to start to see the life advice that I got and the photos of those strangers. But I will say that one of my very, very favorite pieces of advice that I got this week was from somebody in Bozeman, Montana, and I need to make sure I read this correctly. This person said, "You don't have to heal through your past. You can live your life through the present and the possibilities of the future without constantly thinking about the past." And they said it so confidently too. And they're pretty young, probably around my age. I was like, how did you figure that out? Turns out they had had a stroke when they were 19. They lost a lot of their memory from behind that, and that kind of held them back. That uncomfortable feeling of not actually being able to remember their past, kind of a guilt of being like, I know that we were close friends, but I can't remember because I had a stroke. And so this person talked about how they had gone through all these different things to figure out that they don't have to live through their past, that they can just focus on the present and move forward into the future. I loved that, and I loved how confidently they said it. Let's talk about the highlights of this week. A lot of the highlights this week revolve around beauty of some form, starting with being in Washington, right? I think at the beginning of this past week, I was going towards Spokane, and that drive is unreal, just going through the mountains, and this has been a theme for the last few weeks. Like, I thoroughly enjoy driving through mountains, especially as somebody who grew up in Ohio. Right? I grew up on a lot of, surrounded by a lot of flat farmland despite being in a suburb, right? You just go 10 minutes out. And honestly, I actually did live next to a farm too. It's a very surreal experience for me to go through that and see all these mountains. So that drive was spectacular, just unreal in so many aspects. And as I got out of Spokane, I went into the northern part of Idaho. I think I was supposed to go to the southern part of Idaho a few weeks ago when I was in Wyoming. And to be honest, I forgot, which sounds silly, but I got into Salt Lake City. I attended those Roe v. Wade abortion protests, and then just forgot that I was probably supposed to go a little bit up north before coming back down through Salt Lake City. And that's okay. I went through the northern part of Idaho into Coeur d'Alene. Oh my God, Coeur d'Alene was like this super charming, cute, adorable little city, this little town. And that was totally a highlight, just to experience that real quick. I got there in the evening as the sun was setting. And another highlight from Coeur d'Alene is I met this 60-year-old couple. That's 6-0. A 60-year-old couple who had been dating for just 2 weeks. They were on a date, so I don't know if I should call them a couple, but they were on a date, and they were looking at my camera. And usually, I don't talk to people in groups unless they say something about my camera. And I saw this guy really eyeballing the camera. So I was like, I started talking to him. Turns out they met on an app. And so what I told them, and what I tell a lot of strangers is think about the infinite number of things that had to line up for our paths to cross right here, right now. But what I told them is more specifically, think about this. Had you not swiped right on each other on whatever dating app you used, we would not have met. Like, I didn't have the microphone with me, but I definitely did a mic drop, like, when I left that conversation. Montana as a whole was a highlight. Oh my God. I mean, I drove the entire stretch of Montana, west to east, going through Butte, Bozeman, and then I took I-90 to I-94 if you want to actually know the route, but basically the highway that goes all the way across Montana. And there's so much more. Like, the first thing I experienced there, I think I bought some reindeer cherries, which they come from over in Washington, and then I went and got a huckleberry milkshake, and apparently that's a big thing in Montana, huckleberries. I had no idea, and it was probably the best milkshake I've ever had. And then I stopped by a little bookstore in the middle of nowhere. And hold on, I want to find out exactly which city I was in. Let me check. Alberton. I was in Alberton, Montana, because I saw these billboards that said, used bookstore, over 100,000 books. And if there's one thing I'm going to stop for, it's a used bookstore with 100,000 books. Don't forget to buckle up. It's the law. So anyway, I'm at this bookstore and I start talking to the owners, and they are just so sweet and charming. They tell me about how they took their 1940s Chevy and drove it to every county of Montana. But they told me about that, and they were, you know, we were relating to our travels and whatnot, obviously for them in Montana, for me in every state of the country except for Hawaii and Alaska, and a few more to go. But they gave me all these tips about Montana. They said, go check out this place, go check out Terry, where there was a famous photographer who has a gallery there. Go check out Miles City, where there's an annual gigantic horse trade there. You know, they gave me all these tips and pulled out this map, and I ended up staying there for like an hour talking to them about Montana. And it was awesome. I love those kinds of deeper connections, because for the most part what happens is I have really quick interactions with people, and they're genuine and they are meaningful. But when I get to stay around for an hour and have a really full, deeper conversation with someone, that's extra special. And I got to have that at this 100,000 used books bookstore in Alberton, Montana. Now, on that day, I was actually in a rush, and that hour set me back more than I anticipated, and that's okay. I lean into that kind of spontaneity, but I was in a rush to get to Bozeman in the evening because one of my good friends from who I met through an organization called Future Founders has a gourmet mushroom farm, and he was going to be selling his gourmet mushrooms at a farmer's market in Bozeman. And he was like, this is going to be the most amazing hodgepodge of Bozeman folks that you could possibly find. It will be amazing for your project. You get to see me in action and my team, and it will be perfect. And I feel I'm so frustrated because I planned this for 3 days. I readjusted my entire schedule to make sure I could get to Bozeman in that evening on time for 3 days, and I still didn't get there on time because I started getting drowsy on the highway, so I pulled over and took a nap. That bookstore ended up taking an hour that I didn't plan for. Again, totally okay. I fully enjoyed that. I leaned into that kind of spontaneity, but I was still bummed that I didn't get to see the whole farmer's market. I got there right at the end, and I got a little taste of it. It was amazing to run into Ben there, and I stayed with him for the night. So another highlight is that, you know, after the farmer's market ended, me and him and one of his employees, Seth, went and got some steaks and just grilled out and had a good time, ate some great food, used the seasoning from his company. By the way, his company is Sporadic. If you're looking for amazing gourmet mushrooms, or if you're looking for an amazing like mushroom powder seasoning, which I actually didn't realize they had until I tried it, it was unreal. 10 out of 10 would recommend buying that seasoning. Something interesting I noticed about when we were grilling out is that a couple of Ben's neighbors just came over and joined us and started hanging out, and that was great. I didn't mind it at all. I was just like, you know, things like this don't typically happen in Ohio or in Chicago. I asked them, is this a normal thing to do? Do you just walk up to somebody's place when you see them hanging out and join them? And I meant it respectfully. I think it sounds like I'm saying it sarcastically. But they were like, yeah, I mean, somewhat normal in Bozeman, a little more common in the area that we were at because we were near a university. But I liked that. I liked that they could just walk up, join us, and boom, we're new friends. Now here's where it gets even better. In the morning, we wake up and Ben has to show me his farm, right? And that's my rule. I was like, Ben, you have to show me your farm. He goes, yeah, I have to show you my farm. And so we drive over to his farm, we got some bagels, and he shows me the whole operation, and it was unreal because I've seen videos of this. Ben and I met through Future Founders virtually, and so I've seen the backgrounds before, but to be able to see the farm in person was just mind-blowing. This man is a crazy genius. He dropped out of his PhD program to start this mushroom farm, and he's super fulfilled by it in a way that he wasn't fulfilled by his PhD program, but he has his master's in microbiology. He's got insanely high energy. Ben is easily one of the best people I've ever met, hands down, on the planet. And I'm lucky to call him a friend too. But I thoroughly enjoyed getting to hang out with him and his employees there, Becca and Laura. They were incredible, and I was just like, I'm so honored to be here where this magic happens. And growing mushrooms, truly, for someone like me with a business degree and as a photographer and artist, it is truly magic to watch these mushrooms and the process. It's so intricate, complicated, so delicate. and all of that to yield these incredible spores. So Ben, Laura, Becca, Seth, all the whole sporadic team, so amazing to see you in person. I cannot wait to be back in Bozeman soon. After I left the farm, I went to a park in Bozeman, the same one where the farmers market was happening, talked to some folks there, and I was surprised to see that there were quite a few people just hanging around there alone. Oh, I need to adjust something. They were on their blankets and most of them were reading, and they were so friendly. It was interesting, right? Like, I'm getting a feel for the people in so many different states, all the states except for Hawaii and Alaska, and so many different cities within those states. And I can tell you that by far, Bozeman folks that I talked to were some of the nicest, easiest going people I've ever met. I really liked that. I really vibe with that. And by the way, that piece of advice I shared at the beginning of this video was from somebody in Bozeman, sitting on a blanket at this park. From Bozeman, I headed a few hours east into Billings, Montana, where I actually ended up getting a hotel. I haven't had a hotel in a few weeks, I believe. And while it's really, really nice to stay in a bed with, you know, friends or whatever, just stay on a couch, it is nice to have just like a little bit of privacy to really just veg out and do nothing in a hotel room. So I did that. And the next day I went into Miles City, Montana, which brings me to another highlight where the stranger who I met at a brewery was like, you know, there's a scenic overlook in Terry, Montana, and it's totally worth checking out. It's just a few minutes outside of the main like exit from the highway. I would recommend. And he asked me what kind of car I drive, and I was like, I drive a Camry. He goes, yeah, you should be all right. Didn't really mention the details of the road, and here's some video of that. It was pretty intense. I don't even think the video does it justice. Like, I was like, I don't think my Camry has ever handled a road like this, and it handled it just fine, like a total champ, like a Camry would. And the scenic overlook was pretty cool. I got some amazing drone shots of it here. It was nice to see. I think that was probably the beginning of like the Badlands. And I'd always heard of that word, Badlands. I didn't even know what it was until now. See, isn't it amazing? Like, I'm learning so much about the country that I'm like connecting these dots that I didn't even know were in my brain, and now they are, and they're fully formed in a way they weren't before. So now I know what the Badlands look like. And I got to experience even more of that as I continued further east. Like when I got to Glendive, which was at the very easternmost part of Montana, I realized and learned from the locals there that Glendive is where a lot of dinosaur skeletons have been found. So I went into the nearby park, Makoshika, and checked it out. Got to learn a little bit more about dinosaurs and kind of witnessed the fact that I was within where so much history happened, where so many dinosaurs are very well preserved, and I'm still backing up. I'm not really totally sure why. I know there's a lot of highlights. I got two more real quick. One of them is that you might have seen in the last week's recap that at the start of the week, right before I filmed that video, somebody basically told me that I was going to go to hell for not being Christian, and he said it in a nice way, but you know, just because you say a hateful thing in a nice way doesn't make it any less hateful. And I ended this week, you know, at a rest stop where somebody asked me if he could say a prayer for me after learning about what I was doing, and he took my hand in both of his and said a little prayer real quick, and then we shook hands and we went on our way. He didn't try to convert me. He didn't try to ask me about my faith. He just wanted to help in the way that he felt like he could, by saying a prayer. And that was nice. It was a very amazing contrast to experience a hateful version of Christianity at the beginning of the week, and then a very genuinely loving version of Christianity at the end of the week. It was nice. And one final highlight is that I had a really amazing time in Fargo thanks to my friend Jimmy and his wife and her dad. Because I called Jimmy and I was like, dude, I know you're in Fargo. I know this is super short notice. I'd love to see you if it's gonna work out this evening. If not, no worries. He goes, actually, my wife's dad is going to be performing with his band for the first time live. And he's like, we're gonna be at this place called Sons of Norway if you wanna come watch this guy perform. And I was like, do I want to watch your father-in-law perform in a live band? Of course I do. I was like, I am going to be there no matter what. And so I was there. I had an amazing time, and they were actually really, really, really good. Genuinely. Like, I've seen bad live performances from small bands. This was so far from it. These guys are going to do very well. I guarantee it. Even if they keep it casual, like, I cannot wait to come back to Fargo to see them. They're called The Dudes. So that was super fun. And I also got to meet Jimmy's wife. I also got to meet his friends, and I had a really good time. They had good vibes all around. Sons of Norway was really fun. Someone bought me a drink. That was nice. I was like, what a wonderful way to end my week. Just like a perfect way to end my week. And again, I zoom through any place that I'm in. And so it's not often that I get to like immerse myself in a little bit of like the culture of a place, right? And so for Fargo, I got to experience a little bit of the culture of the place, of this little, you know, Sons of Norway place that was really quirky with live music from locals. I mean, just, it doesn't get better than that. So let's talk about some challenges real quick. One of them being that I'm in all these really gorgeous, amazing, beautiful places, but I'm on a mission. And so the challenge is that I just find myself thinking, oh, I wish I could spend more time here. But again, I'm on a mission. Another challenge is bugs. There were so many bugs on the drive through Montana and through North Dakota. I mean, my windshield was like a war zone of dead bugs. It was disgusting, and honestly at times made it a little bit hard to drive. It was that bad. Like, there's so much on the windshield. Every time I had a chance to stop at a gas station and scrape it all off with one of those windshield, you know, wiper things, I had to. Like, it's not that I even wanted to, I had to. And all those bugs also meant mosquito bites. I'm like covered in mosquito bites. I was at a rest area the other night and I have cat treats in my trunk because I've run across so many stray cats that I'm like, why not have cat treats with me? I saw a cat at a rest area somewhere in, I think, North Dakota, and I didn't even get out to feed it because there were too many mosquitoes. I was like, I'm not willing to get eaten alive to feed this cat, I'm sorry. Another challenge, moldy AC. So this sounds gross and it's not as bad as I make it sound, but a few weeks ago, I started noticing that when I would turn my AC on, when I would get into the car, when I turned it on for the first time, it would smell a little bit moldy. And so I had to just spray it down like the fresh air intake with this special kind of spray that would help disinfect the inside of that area so that it wouldn't be as moldy. So a minor challenge because it's a really quick and cheap fix, but I was like, I think I'm done smelling mold when I get into my car. So I think I got rid of that. Everything's been fine the last few days. Another quick challenge is that the rest areas I've been staying at this week have been very isolated, like middle of nowhere, truly, and empty. Like, I've been the only car at these rest areas, and I don't like that because when there are a lot of other people sleeping, which is how it is at most rest areas that I've been to across the country, there are always people who pull in late at night, sleep in their car, take off in the morning. I like when there are a lot of other people around because if something were to happen, like, who knows, worst case scenario, if somebody's trying to break into my car or whatever, if there are a lot of people around, someone's gonna be there to help. And it's also just gonna deter people from trying to do anything in the first place. But when it's just empty, I'm like, if something happens, I've got my pepper spray and my phone, but nobody else is around to help. So if I'm not quick enough, so I don't love staying at empty rest areas, but I do it, and I've been fine so far. Another challenge is that I'm in the home stretch mentality. I am 3 weeks away from being done with the road trip of this project. That's when I get to start to develop the film and start digitizing, and being in the home stretch has me thinking a lot more about what it's going to be like to develop the film and start digitizing and to start sharing that journey instead of focusing 100% on the road trip part. So I have to keep reminding myself, I'm like, yes, I am in the home stretch, but I have to continue to be in the present. I have to continue to enjoy every single moment of the next 3 weeks. And one final challenge, I miss my cats. You know, I've been fine for the most part on this trip. I don't think about it too much. I'm very much like out of sight, out of mind, for better or worse. But, you know, with my friends know what I'm doing. They can follow along on social media. My friends know that I miss them. My cats have no idea where I am and what I'm doing. They probably think I'm dead. And when I think about that, I'm like, oh, my poor babies. So I'm excited to get back to my cats soon. Here's a here's a sequence of photos that my dad sent me, and he hasn't sent me pictures of my cats in a few weeks now. So it starts with this, and immediately goes to this, and then that, a little bit of retaliation, and finally a little bit more of, you know, literally kicking back. Look at Prince's leg, like full on against CK's body. He's like, get the hell out of here. Get off of me, punk. That's it for week 11. If you've made this far, you watched it all the way through, I can't tell you how much that means to me. Like, seriously, the fact that I get to share my journey with you in this way is so satisfying because I'm in such an amazing, you know, privileged position to be able to do this thing. And I want to be able to share it with everybody. I'm taking a huge risk doing this. I'm doing a lot of insane things doing this, but I'm having fun and I'm so glad I get to share it. So thank you for watching. To my Patreon supporters, I love you. That's it, I love you. Thank you so much. And in week 12, hold on, I gotta check to make sure where I'm going. In week 12, you're gonna see me go to South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and possibly even Iowa, possibly even Minnesota. Depends how fast I zoom through this week. But it's gonna be awesome to be able to like kind of do a little U around these next couple states, and then really be in the home stretch going towards Chicago, Indianapolis, Kentucky, and then back to Columbus, Ohio. Wow, what a journey it's been. We are almost there, but thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in week 12.